For 300 cycles, the Concord of Worlds had cataloged life across the spiral arm with calm, tidy confidence. They found gas drifters that thought in tides. They found crystal colonies that remembered light. They found hive minds built from spores and storms. They found war species, too, and learned how to fold them into treaties. Every new civilization was filed into the same ledger. Strength, technology, temperament, predictability. Humans were placed in the ledger with a quiet laugh, primitive, loud, emotionally unstable. A species that fought itself more than it fought the dark. They were admitted to the Concord only, because the Concord was proud of its mercy. The humans were given a small seat in the council hall, a translation system, and a thin smile, and then the stars began to go silent. It started at the edge of mapped space, where the Concord's listening arrays noticed gaps in the background chatter. At first, it looked like a storm of interference. Then it looked like sabotage. Then it looked like fear. Entire relay stations vanished. Survey crews stopped answering. Mining colonies sent one final message that was mostly screaming. The council called it an unknown predator. The humans called it what it was, a war Captain Elias. Ward stood in the Concord Hall with his hands behind his back, watching the other delegates speak in careful, elegant tones. Their bodies were smooth and balanced, their gestures measured. Even their panic was polite. The Concord speaker, a tall figure with 4 arms and a voice like soft metal, addressed the room. The unknown force has taken 12 outposts. The pattern suggests it moves through the void like a tide. We must withdraw, consolidate, and negotiate if possible. A murmur of agreement rolled through the hall. Ward's jaw tightened. He had served in Earth's orbital fleet. He had watched pirates try to board civilian ships and learned what happened when you waited too long to act. He had also read the Concord's reports. He knew how they thought. They believed that survival was a matter of balance. Humans had never had that. Luxury Ward stepped forward. Negotiation with what? He asked. The speaker paused. We do not know. But the Concord does not begin with violence. Ward's eyes swept the hall. You already did. You just did it slowly. You expanded. You built. You took systems. You assumed you could always talk your way out. Now something bigger is answering. Several delegates stiffened. A few made gestures of offense. Ward continued anyway. Earth has a saying. When you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not ghosts. This is not a myth. This is an enemy fleet. Smaller delegate, a thin one with a long neck, tilted its head. Humans are not known for accurate threat analysis. Ward almost smiled. We are known for being wrong loudly until we are right violently. The hall did not like that. The Concord did not like humans in general. Humans were too direct, too emotional, too hard to place in a neat category. The council voted for retreat. They voted to abandon the outer systems. They voted to build defensive rings around the core. They voted to wait. Ward returned to his ship, the Resolve. Felt something cold settle behind his ribs. Waiting was not neutral. Waiting was a decision. In the weeks that followed, the silence grew. More systems fell. More signals died. The Concord fleet moved like a slow river, retreating in perfect formation, leaving behind empty stations and shattered habitats. The enemy did not chase like an animal. It advanced like a machine. It did not broadcast. It did not bargain. It did not take prisoners. It erased. The first time the Resolve saw it. Ward understood why the Concord had wanted to pretend it was something else. The enemy ships were wrong in a way that made the mind resist them. Their hulls looked like layered shadows. Their movement was too smooth, too silent, too certain. They did not flare engines or throw waste heat like any normal craft. They slid through space like they belonged there. More than anything else, Ward watched the tactical display. Range? Asked his officer. Mira Holt answered quickly. Closing. Too fast. They are ignoring our escorts. Ward's throat tightened. They are not ignoring. They are selecting. The Concord cruiser line fired first. Brilliant beams cut across the void, and for a moment Ward felt hope. Then the beams bent, not deflected. Not absorbed, bent. As if space itself leaned to protect the enemy. The Concorde's weapons struck empty darkness while the enemy glided forward untouched. Then the enemy returned fire. There was no light, no dramatic blast, no heroic flare. The first Concorde cruiser simply stopped existing. One moment it was. There at the next moment the display showed a hole where its mass had been. The second cruiser vanished 2 seconds. Later, the third tried to turn and was erased mid-mover. The Concorde fleet broke formation. They had never trained for this. They had never believed. Wrong things could happen, Ward gripped the rail of his command platform until his knuckles whitened. Full retreat, the Concorde Admiral transmitted. Fall back to the core. Do not engage. Ward stared at the enemy ships. They did not pursue the fleeing Concorde. Vessels. They moved past them, straight toward the core. Straight toward the Council. Straight toward every world that still believed diplomacy was a shield. Ward's ship was not large. The Resolve was a human-built cruiser, rugged and ugly by Concorde standards, with thick armor and engines that ran hotter than polite species considered sane. Ward turned to Holt. "Send a message to the Council," he said. Holt hesitated. "Captain, the Council already ordered retreat." Ward's voice sharpened. "Send it anyway," Holt transmitted. Ward spoke slowly, forcing each word into the cum with a steady tone. "This is not a raid. This is not a border dispute. This is extinction. If you keep retreating, you will die tired." The Council replied with silence. They believed humans were dramatic. They believed humans exaggerated. They believed wrong. The next phase came faster than anyone expected. The enemy reached the inner systems within a month. Concorde. Defenses failed in hours. Planetary. Shields designed to stop meteor strikes folded like paper. Defense stations that had never faced a real siege fired until their barrels overheated, then were erased one by one. The enemy did not land troops. It did not need to. It destroyed orbital infrastructure first, cutting worlds off from each other. Then it shattered power grids from orbit. Then it began to crack cities with precision strikes. Not to conquer, but to end. The Concorde finally panicked. Emergency votes were called. New proposals were shouted. Some wanted surrender. Some wanted evacuation. Some wanted to beg. The humans sat in the hall and listened until Ward could no longer stand it. He rose, and the room fell quiet. Not out of respect, but because humans were unpredictable when cornered. Ward spoke. "You cannot bargain with something that does not see you as people," he said. "You cannot retreat forever. You cannot hide in the core and pretend the edge will hold." The speaker's voice trembled. "Then what do you suggest, human?" Ward inhaled. He thought of Earth, of oceans and storms, of a species that had crawled out of mud and decided to argue with the universe. He thought of the Resolve's weapons, of old human designs the Concorde had mocked. He thought of what humans did best: improvisation, violence. When necessary, stubborn refusal to die quietly. "We build something you have never built," Ward said. "A weapon that does not need to hit them. A weapon that hits the space around them." A ripple of confusion moved through the hall. Ward continued. "You saw their defense. They bend space. Fine. We do not shoot through it. We shake it." Speaker's eyes narrowed. "Explain." Ward did. Humans had experimented for decades with kinetic rail systems. Not just ship weapons, but industrial mass drivers. Launchers built to throw, or satellites and cargo across orbital lanes without fuel. They were loud, crude, and powerful. The Concorde dismissed them as inefficient. Ward proposed turning them into something else. A harmonic weapon. A gravitational shockwave. A system that would not pierce the enemy's spatial bending, but overloaded, not by strength alone, but by resonance. The council argued for hours. They said it was impossible. They said it was barbaric. They said it would damage nearby systems. Ward did not deny it. Yes, he said. War is damage. You are already dying. The only question is whether you die politely. A vote was held. It failed. The Concorde chose evacuation again. The humans returned to the Resolve. Holt stood beside Ward in the quiet of the command deck. They will not listen, she said. Ward stared at the stars. No, he answered. They will when it is too late. Holt swallowed. Then what? Ward turned. Then we do it anyway, he said. Humans had never been good at waiting for permission. In the following days, Ward transmitted encrypted signals to every human ship and every human station within range. He called in old favors. He invoked forgotten alliances. He used Earth's private industry, its defense contractors, its stubborn colonies. The message was simple. Build, not a fleet. Not a wall, a hammer. The Concorde watched with suspicion as human freighters began moving in strange patterns. They watched as human engineers landed on abandoned mining moons. They watched as humans tore apart mass drivers and rebuilt them into something larger. They laughed. They called it desperation theater. They believed wrong. The first hammer array was built around a dead world with no atmosphere and no population. A barren rock, chosen because there would be no one to mourn if it cracked. Humans anchored 12 rail spines around it, each one longer than a city. They aligned them with painful precision. They connected them to reactors that screamed with heat. They installed capacitors the size of buildings. Ward stood in the center.